And so first of all, I'd like to introduce a couple of key players at the state level, and the president, Grant Stevenson, the president of Isaiah, and also a pastor at St. Matthew's Lutheran Church in St. Paul, and then also Paul Slack, who is the co-chair of something called the Clergy and Religious Leaders Caucus, and he's also a pastor at New Creation Church. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Thanks. Thank you, Ron. Thanks for coming. So Isaiah is a coalition of congregations, 90 congregations in the Twin Cities metropolitan area and statewide, particularly in St. Cloud. We exist so that churches have a way to have a vehicle to act on behalf of social, racial, and economic justice. This is the call that we have as congregations, as Christian congregations, as people who have faith. And this event that we're at today is exactly what we're about. Being in relationship with gubernatorial candidates long before the election actually happens. Great. So that we can begin to shape the conversation with them about where we're going as a state. We're going to shape the conversation with them about what's important for us as the state, as the state of Minnesota. And in particular, we want to make sure that a part of the conversation that we have in Minnesota and a part of our future includes building healthy communities. And that's an issue far bigger than healthcare. It's about making sure that there are good jobs for everyone. It's about making sure that there's good transportation and transit options for everyone so that everyone's able to get where they need to go, whether it's to work or to a friend's or to church. It's also about making sure that our communities are safe and that food, good food, is available to everyone, no matter where they live. But it's also about racial equity. Over and over again, we see that the outcomes in health, the outcomes in education are different for white Minnesotans and for black Minnesotans. Why is that? We need this to be a part of our political conversation, and we need to be in conversation with those who would lead this state around this critical issue. I'd like to ask Pastor Paul Slack to talk a little bit about some of the specifics that we're involved with to address the issues that I've been talking about.
Hi, my name is Paul Slack, and I'm pastor of New Creation Church in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, and I am also co-chair of Isaiah's Clergy and Religious Leaders Caucus. We're here today because, frankly, we need bold leadership in our state. Our next governor has to have courage. Our new legislative body has to have courage to really address specifically our issues around the disparities that are around race, and they really need to have the courage to have that conversation specifically. Too many people have shied away from those conversations. We've talked about how our state has led in issues around education. We've talked about how our state has been a leader on the healthcare issues. We've talked about how our state has had one of the lowest statistics around jobs and creation of jobs in our country and has done far better than others. What we have not done is we have not looked specifically at how poorly communities of color are doing in this state on issues of education. We have one of the greatest disparities in our nation when it comes to how well white communities are doing, white students are doing on the education issues, and African American, Latino students, and Asian students are doing. Unless we really begin to address those conversations specifically, communities of color will continue to do worse, will continue to fail, will continue not being prepared to succeed and have the opportunities that they deserve as well as all of our communities deserve. We've talked about how well we've led on issues of health. And yes, we have one of the greatest health records in the country. What we don't talk about is how we have one of the worst records on health for communities of color. Unless we specifically talk about that, that will continue to be our record. I'm here to say that that's just not good enough. It's not good enough for one part of our communities to do well and another to do poorly. We talked about how we did on the stimulus package. Well, at least some of us have talked about how well some of us have done with the stimulus package and recovery. While the rest of the country had done well on issues around jobs, communities of color existed in a state of recession for decades before we ever experienced this economic downturn recently. And then while the rest of the country, the rest of our state slipped into a recession, communities of color slipped into a depression. Unless we really address that and talk about the health of all of our communities, talk about creating opportunities for all of us in every part of our sectors, in every community, in all of our state, we will continue to do well, we will continue to fail, and eventually all of us, we think that some of us can exist well. I want to stand here and tell you today that unless we really create opportunities for all of us, eventually all of us will really fail. We'll not have the record, we will not have the health that we need for all of us to truly rise out of this system of economic downturn and truly have a recovery that is a recovery for all of us. Our faith is the only thing that can lead us out of this. It is not either party that is currently positioned to have those conversations. We need someone to rise above nonpartisanship and talk about what we all need out of our faith, out of a value that truly embraces all people and all communities to create the opportunities that we need to grow. Thank you very much.